Hello everyone, it's Chris here. Welcome back to the channel. Really grateful you are here. Spread the word, please. And I hope this video will be less long than usual. It should be because I have a lot of other things to do. The monsoon started here in Phuket in Thailand, and we've got a new roof on the building. So I'm running up and down to make sure there's no leaks. It's a monsoon or something else, man. Unless you've seen the rain in the monsoon. It really rains. Every time it rains, I have to pump a swimming pool empty because it will fill up with an inch of 2 inches even of water. And you just pump that out and hope that no fish get stuck in there because Rebecca and myself, we've changed the swimming pool into a pond. Reason for that is mosquitoes. We would rather have frogs and fishes and things there, even a few leucaena. Monitor lizards, they call them. They're right behind our place. There's like a river, and in that river you find these monitor lizards. They look like crocodiles. They're as big as me. They're over 6 feet, some of them. And some of them are babies, They're actually quite cute. They don't really bother us. So anyway, I want to talk about Codename Willow Bay today because that's one of the books which features a lot in the other books. Now, you will remember that every JMJ book can be read by itself, and everyone has a story in it which deals with a certain subject. So Codename Willow Bay, as an example, will be dealing with a new method which we discovered and perfected, may I say, in taking over ships which were taken over by terrorists. In other words, that's where your usual methods of approach will not work. And I describe in the book in great detail why it will not work. In the first place, the traditional method is you come in low and fast with helicopters, you just hover above it and you go down with a fast rope onto the deck and then you take over the ship. That's actually what happened in the Falklands War. There was some spy vessel, an Argentinian trawler or something, which our Royal Marines took like that. Whether they abseiled down or whether they fast roped down, I'm not too sure anymore. But it's in the book. I think it was a novel or something. And then, I don't know why, but the ship sank afterwards. They didn't blow it up or scuttle it or anything like that. My theory is they didn't know how to control it. They had no seamen with them who could actually do it. And so the thing just sank. Or they decided just to abandon it. Whatever. But that was a bit of a fiasco, to be honest. There's some pictures and videos of that available on the internet. It's actually quite funny. They're coming down, and the one guy a Marine would have fallen in the water. But one of our Argentinian crew, very kind of him, instead of shooting the guys, probably had no weapons, just grabbed a rope and brought him back onto the deck. And of course, the Marine got down and just, sorted him out, which you would expect from Royal Marines. They're great people. I rate the Special Boat Squadron a lot higher than I would rate the SAS. Just my opinion. Everybody has opinions. Yeah, but I do base it on fact. I base it on training, and if you look at the fiascos, anyway, let's not go there. So anyway, that method will not work because there's every chance in the book against modern terrorists. And this ship which we want to rescue is actually not a normal ship. It is something which is called a mothership. And what happens here, and this is based on fact, of course it is, you can go and research. As I always say to you, research my books. Don't just take my word, man. Just research it. Because we do reveal astonishing things. We reveal things which most people will not know about. But you should know about it. You ought to know about it. It's like Trotsky said, you might not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. So the problem here is you can say to me, man, who cares what Jesuits are doing somewhere? It doesn't affect me. Yeah, it does affect you. Millions have died. Lots of millions. If you read Oath of Evil, the War on Protestantism, a book I always repeat in every single video because it's so important and everything goes back to it because that's where it's explained. How these things stick together and what's happening in the world. which is causing the terrorism and the chaos and the Hegelian dialectics behind it and so forth. You need this knowledge. If you need to understand what's going on. You won't be able to change it. But it will give you faith at least to know that all will be good in the end. So that's very important. So these ships that we're talking about are actually merchant vessels, which Western intelligence are on through front companies. Yes, we know exactly where they are. These front companies. We've got friends in those countries. Hello, BRICS. Wake up. It's like I said from the beginning, the books, if you just read it, we'll think, oh, wow, guys out here to insult NATO and America and the West, they must really hate these people. No, I don't. The books are written as a warning. It is written to say to you guys, we're aware of this. We know what's going on. We understand this. And I guarantee you, if I know what's going on, so does your enemies. Wake up to that fact before you start, insulting me and write me insulting comments and letters and what have you. I don't care. I'm like, after 4 years on YouTube with Legacy Conversations, I'm like thick-skinned now. I'm like, I've been called every damn name in the book. So if you don't know what's Legacy Conversations like on the sign here next to me, then let me just briefly explain, and you will know already. Forgive me once again. I don't know who's watching the video for the first time. That is a major channel, meaning major for us, nothing to the rest of YouTube. But that's where we speak to the military veterans, police veterans, intelligence veterans, if we can get hold of them. About all of them South African, and there we have a guest from the US or from the UK even, or we might have a lot of Rhodesians, where we find them and find their story interesting and bring it. So that's where the guys are telling you, look, I was 18 years old, I got called up because we had conscription going, or they volunteered. Like I volunteered for the South African Police Force, where I stayed 6 years. Then I became an attorney. I was at a very prestigious law firm, the one where I actually serviced Nelson Mandela and the rest for many, many years. Then I went on my own and I was involved in a great game of the shadows, as they say, and a lot of things happened, blah, blah, blah. The thing I'm saying is at that channel, a lot of the things which are discussed in these books are actually confirmed. Now, it's interesting, and I say this in many of the videos, that these people who confirmed the books didn't read the books. They knew nothing about the books. They still don't. And they would sit there, special forces officers, others, and they would talk about incidents which you find in the books. So there's a huge amount of truth in the books, even if it's sometimes called fiction or fictionalized. It's done with reasons, which I'm sure I don't need to explain. But what happens is they have these merchant vessels, and then they sail up and down a coast. Let's say the coast of Tanzania, or very close to Kenya, or a little bit further north. And then what would happen is the operators inside the country, and they ain't good. They're not good at all. They would then go and they would snatch somebody. That's the terminology for kidnapping a guy. So in other words, you're thinking, like this Abdullah, whatever, is perhaps a terrorist, and you want to speak to him privately, so you go and you take him. Yeah, Sakuri Kop. In fact, in the first book which was written, it's not the first book in timeline, codename VFO 565. We dedicate the entire chapter on how these people are captured, and then they are delivered to a waiting submarine, or they wait one of these merchant ships, whatever. You was doing the delivery wouldn't know. There's no way in the world. You just see these commandos coming out of a beach. There's the entire procedure of handing the guy over. They will do DNA. They will ask if he's injured, if he was treated, if he has any medical conditions, blah, blah, blah. And only then they sort of sign for him in a sense of a handshake, and you get paid in somewhere in the world, probably Swineland, because that nation is the best nation in the world to support terrorism. Yeah, I mentioned that in my books as well. The interesting fact that they made a deal with Yasser Arafat and the PLO, which was in the late 60s, early 70s, and Swinair, Swiss Air, was never attacked again. Amazing, isn't it? Of course, they say it's by chance. There's a lot of things by chance, but when it forms a pattern, you have to wonder about it. It is in the books. It's this type of things which we reveal in the books, which is why they're so suppressed. But anyway, what the West is doing is they had these safe houses, even here in Thailand, where I live, other places, always third world countries. Well, Thailand's not a third world country at all. But you know what I mean. They wouldn't necessarily try and do that in say, in France or in Europe. They would do it somewhere else because they can't do it in the US. In the first place, the CIA is not allowed by law to operate in the US. Let us roll our eyes because they do operate in the US. Yes, we know about it. We know about the links between Lee Harvey Oswald and the CIA. We know where their idea comes from, that they can kill people for the greater good. It's a Catholic principle. Read my latest book when it's out, code name Snake 606, book 54. We discuss that in some detail and see what was the links. Even the guy who went and murdered Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby, was totally involved with the CIA. And at that stage, the CIA, of course, were very, very angry with John F. Kennedy for the Bay of Pigs and other things. He wanted to break them apart. But it's in the books. So the point I'm making is we're not really supposed to take these people. There's nothing legal about it. You have to understand this too. This is outright criminal behavior. There's nothing legal in the shadows. There's a reason why they call this covert operations or black operations or whatever fancy name they can think of. You know, it never happened. It's one of those things. Because if it happened, it means that you acting on behalf of your state, which many of them actually do, especially if they fully employed by the CIA or by your own services. Whatever they do, it's the same as a soldier going out and he murders people, and the West do that all the time. It's in the books as well. It just creates more terrorism, more chaos. Very low standards, very low standards. They do have actually a flag on their shoulder. It will be the UK satanic symbol flag. It will be the US one, which is also satanic, and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, the terrorist sees this guy and he identifies him as an American or a Brit or a French or whatever, and that's why you people are killed in other places. They cause terrorism. I wrote books about this. We'll get to it. But in the Wallow Bay, the ships they're trying to capture here and they need to get on board are these type of ships which is run by intelligence officers. They have former special forces people on them to guard them. They would snatch this guy, they would bring him out to the ship, he would be interrogated and then murdered. Because there's no way in the world he's going to walk out there. Well, once they get him, he's going to become fish food, man. It's just the way it is. That's how it works in that life. And that's why I say to you that if somebody ever approaches you and they have this story of for God and country and king and country and God knows, well, just punch the hell out of him and walk away. Because it's not for everyone. And as I always say, it's either very boring or extremely frightening or both. And yeah, well, anyway, you read the books, you'll see what I mean. So these ships are actually very easy to trace. I want in the book and in this book, Wallow Bay, as well as in others, how they do it. Very simple. You look at the pattern of a ship. No commercial ship ever just sail around. It costs money to do that. So it's almost like an aircraft. It has a fixed route. It's going to take off at Jan Smuts and it's going to land in Bangkok. That's it. It's the same with a ship. It will load at Hong Kong Harbour. It will then sail wherever it's sailing, and it ends up in wherever. So the moment that you see a vessel of a fairly big size not doing that, and it's just sailing in a figure 8 there around the coast, almost like the SIGINT aircraft of the US. You find them flying here next to the borders of some countries. They're up to no good. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're up to no good. So you can identify them, and then you start tracking them by satellite. This is very important because that also means that you will know where they are in the future. Because they're so arrogantly stupid, they don't think anything can ever happen to them, is that they would actually follow the same route. They just go in circles. So you will know, and this is important, remember why I say that, remember this, we will know where that ship is going to be in 2 days from now, even if it's on the open ocean. If it keeps a steady speed, if it does what it usually do, we will know and will be able to ambush you. Right? Big lesson there. How are you going to overcome that? Man, I've got no idea. My advice is stop your nonsense. You're not really making any friends here. Since you got involved in counterterrorism in Sub-Saharan Africa, which is my theater, I know a lot about it. Yeah, AfricaCom, what? US Command of Africa, what do they call themselves? Africa, whatever. I always say, toch, shame. They're not even based in Africa. They would have been based in Nigeria. Then the Nigerians said no. South Africans said no, we don't want you. Africa Command. Now they're based, I think, in Düsseldorf in Germany somewhere, and they try to run operations in Africa. Yeah, you're not good. You're really not good. Go home. People at famous British universities actually did studies, and it came out that you created terrorism. You created it. It went up 5-fold or something. It's ridiculous. Some researchers say 20-fold. Why? Because you don't know what you're doing. You drone strike people, you attack people, you try to kill people. Guess what? It just doesn't work. At the end of the day, you kill the wrong people. Under Obama, and this is also in the books, you will find out the drone strikes. We're so proud of our predators. So once we get shot down every 5 minutes in Yemen, with the Houthis now, where the US Navy actually lost twice now, the battles they lost. Yeah, you won't read these things in our books. It's funny. It's funny. Depends from where you come from, I suppose. For me, it's warnings, but no one's listening. But it's interesting, these predator strikes, these guys get very well paid. They sit there close to Las Vegas. They play these computer games and they murder real people. And it is murder because under Obama, 96.2% of the times they killed the wrong person. Imagine that. Some people will call it murder. You go and kill the wrong person. What do you think the survivors of that person is going to do? He's going to pick up a rifle. He's going to kill you or whoever he can kill. Perhaps he can't get you really in the US where you ran away to, because you always run away. But he's going to get you at some stage. And at some stage, you're going to get semi-state actors like myself in the old days involved. And we know what we're actually doing. And it's our theater. We fit in, we speak the languages, we have the teams, we have the networks, we know you. Go and read the code name Malice, and there you will find out what happens when two forces clash. You can also look at another book, I actually have it here, code name Castleberry. Here it is. Code name Castleberry. I'll still speak about it at some stage. It's not the book we're speaking about now. But this explains to you what's going to happen if a US Navy team don't carry their SEALs or not, there's still low standards. If they try to land on a coast, and we know about it, and we put an ambush, and in it, I mentioned there's a secret way of killing you, because we know what you're going to do. The moment the shots are fired at you, you're going to return back into the water, and that's where you will die. But in the book, I was asked to remove that technique and not to explain it to every terrorist who perhaps reads my books. So that was taken out. But these type of clashes are very possible and probably will happen in the future. They certainly happened in the COVID world. And anyway. So these ships cannot be approached by the normal way. Because as I said, they have this special forces people on board. They have intelligence officers on board. You come in with your helicopter, they're going to pick you on radar. Surface-to-air missiles are now so common, especially with Ukraine now selling probably 60% of whatever the West are sending to them are now on the black market. Yes, we're finding it in Africa. Yes, we know about it. Nothing we don't know. And guess what? There's a good chance that they will shoot these helicopters down. Then they scuttle the ship. There goes all your evidence. Nothing you can do about that. And then you failed. Because at the end of the day, you want to capture the ship so that you can use it as a propaganda tool against the West. Yeah, that's why I'm warning you. That's why I'm warning you. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Helicopters will not work. So let's try with the manly thing, a rubber duck with two, big manly guys in the front. Well, two, a lot of them. You just approach the ship from the sides, you board them, you take it over. Hello, this is not the English Channel anymore. We'll kill you long before you get to that ship. Why? Because a sonar will pick you up. Now you can say to me, okay, Chris, but we have aircraft, man. We can block, we can jam those radars and things. Yeah, you can jam a radar, but when the terrorists, and they are terrorists from certain viewpoints, then they will know you're approaching. And what do you think they're going to do? Their orders are to sink that ship. The chances are there. It's rigged. They're going to just, boom, blow it. Right. Then the third alternative which you have is where you can actually swim up to the ship if it's lying at anchor somewhere. You swim under the water, go up it, take it over, no problem. The fourth way is, of course, if it's in harbor or something, you just take it over. You disguise yourself as harbor master or customs or whatever, and you just grab it. But these ships don't go to harbors like that, and they don't really lie on anchor either. They are one of these who we know where you exchange crews as well. Hello, we're not stupid. They're at the Horn of Africa. We know about that. So these ships are picked up, and the question then arises, and that was what we had to sort out in this book and in real life, is how do we get onto that ship with a Special Forces team? Now, a Special Forces team, as I explain in the books, are not always from the army or the police. It can be intelligence as well. And it can even be unofficial. It can be a team which you never heard about. With former Special Forces people who, like a private military company, I mean, they also have that capacity if you can support them and you have enough money. Definitely they can do it. Lots of countries can do it. But the problem is still to get onto that ship. And so in the book, there's a way figured out how to do it. There's two things actually of importance here. One is a crossbow, because they needed a weapon with a firepower of 5.0 Browning to take out guards which are also silent. Now, okay, man, that was a challenge. And so, of course, we looked at history and we found out that the Foreign Legion uses crossbows quite a lot, actually. And at a certain distance, say about 50 meters, that damn thing is as accurate as any rifle. Of course, it's a one-shot thing, but it's silent. And I assure you, if that bolt goes through your head, you'll go down, man. There's no way you're not gonna make it. You did. You're not gonna make it. It's end of story. Perhaps I've put this wrong now, but the fact is, you will be dead. So the crossbow is tested there for Special Forces use as well. And it works. It works very, very well. And we go through the entire way of testing. Then the other way of getting onto it became known as the Willow Bay method. So the character Angelique Dawson was, in the books anyway, the counter-terrorism head, and she's everything in the books. Right? And this is a woman which, man, we're all in love with her, if I'm honest. And she was very, well, she might still be. I'm not telling you whether she's alive or not. The character is based upon somebody. And she's dangerous. She's got all the skills. She's a Krav Maga expert, and she was. She can shoot with any firearm better than anybody else, and she could. And she had like she absolutely want to win in anything. It doesn't matter whether you play darts, Scrabble, or whatever. It doesn't matter what she does. She wants to win. She's got this thing about winning. And she's Special Forces trained herself. Now, the French spies, by the way, most of them are encouraged to go to the French commando courses and to get these skills. I know that the Brits don't really do that. They use front companies. The CIA, of course, have such a unit called SAD, and they are SAD as well, the Special Activities Division. They're not good. Their problem is recruiting. They recruit from the wrong people. They've got the wrong attitudes. And they cannot operate in a country where they're not sort of welcome. I've explained this in other videos. I'm not going to go into it again. We explain it in the books as well. But anyway, with Codename Willowbay, she approaches her main agent and later her husband because these two are very close. Not sleeping together yet. That only happens right before we get married. You know, there's no sex in my books. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, man. I don't believe in such things before marriage. End of story. I don't care what your excuses are. I follow the Bible. Bible alone. 10 Commandments. Nothing else. Of course, people in the stories are not actually that following the Bible that much, but they do have a lot of honor in them. A lot of honor. There's a lot of things they discuss in the books also, which is very, very true from a biblical viewpoint. But in that world, you have to kill. It is sadly like that. In Willowbay, by the way, is one of about 10 books which were written when no one dies, because it's a technical exercise. And the technical exercise is how to get on that ship. And not only yourself, how to get a lot of people on that ship at the same time. So we thought of a lot of things, and one of the ways was to say, well, why don't we parachute right onto the ship? Now, theoretically, it can be done, but again, you will be shot dead. You will become aware of it and might sink it. The other problem we also have is we found out that maritime terrorism is going to increase. Go and look at the video I made about Codename Caribbean, because we really speak where this come from, what the documents is we found, and why we're saying that. But anyway, in Willowbay, they decide to use one of the South African frigates actually as the target ship. Why? Because it has advanced radar and it's got a crack crew on it. It's a very hard target to take. In real life, was it that ship? No, it was a different Navy, but same type of ship. So she comes to Foxtrot, who's this guy I'm talking about, former Special Forces, later her husband. At this stage, they're wary because she's a widow, he's a widower. She codenamed Foxtrot. I made a video on that as well. It will explain to you what happens there. The first book in the series to read is codenamed Foxtrot, but that was not the first book written. If you go to the community page of this YouTube channel, you will find the order of which the book should be read if you want to read it in order of historically how things played out. But that's not how they were written. The first 5 books are actually the last 5 books. Long story. There's good reasons why I did it, but if I had to redo it, I would do it differently. But anyway, he's got all the skills. You know, he was first in the Police Special Task Force, then he went over to Army Special Forces, and then he went rogue in the sense that he was told to leave. A lot of him was told to leave. I explained that as well in the books. And now he's with Angelique, and the two of them are very close. He has a mate called Peter Ndebele Shelfong, also a Special Forces officer, very highly rated and very much respected. There's no such thing as racist things in my books. I already said there's no sex, overt sex. That's why I rejected a few American publishers. In the first place, I wanted to make the characters American. Oh, shame. And then they wanted more sex in the books. Then there's certain things which doesn't concern you. Why? I don't get it, man. This is between you and your wife. Why would you want to? Anyway, so she approaches him and she says she wants to learn how to do a AO, parachute jump. Now, the books are all technically correct. In other words, if in the books where it takes place a halo or a AO jump or a static line jump or a civilian jump, if you look at Codename Dawn, we'll make a video about that. It's very important, that book, because it deals with Katanga, the old Republic of Katanga. The older people here will know exactly what I'm talking about. Moise Tshombe. And you will see how the United Nations then went from a non-interference type of outlook on life. Then Dag Hammarskjöld died, and then they became like, now they're going to intervene. And that is where all the chaos and crap started. We also look in that book where Hammarskjöld was actually killed, murdered. Nonsense, he wasn't. But very fascinating because a year or three later, well, a couple of years later after I wrote the book, at Legacy, we speak to a signals officer of a Royal Signal Corps of the British Army. And he was actually stationed in Cyprus. And one of the things with Doc Hammarskjöld's death is that they intercepted Katanga aircraft who, listening on the radios, which actually came in to shoot down Doc Hammarskjöld, who was a UN Secretary General. Probably the last Christian who was. After him, the UN went completely satanic. Well, it was designed from the beginning, but yeah, we talk about that in the books as well. And that's 3,000 kilometers away, Cyprus now. And I asked this fellow, I said, Major, is it possible for you people that you had the technical means? And he said, yes, absolutely. We could listen in what's happening in Katanga. That's fascinating. It was never actually proven, but once again, it is like the two channels run together. You write something in the books, and then years later you speak to an expert on the other channel, on Legacy Conversations, and that video is not out yet, by the way. It will still come out. Then you hear this guy when the Major will say to you, yes, absolutely, we could have done that. But anyway, in Codename Dawn, they do a parachute jump, which is very unique because it comes from the Spetsnaz, the Russian Special Forces, who I have great respect for, as well as the intelligence special forces, who I have even much greater respect for. And there they use a method where you can get out of a commercial aircraft like a Boeing 747 or whatever, Airbus, whatever, and do a parachute jump from that. And it's not designed to do it, it's not a cargo aircraft. But I'm not going to explain to you a method. You can read the book or wait for my video to come out. But in this idea, in this book, in Willow Bay, Angelique, for some reason, even though she's static trained already, static line trained, which is basic, it's as basic as it gets, she wants to know how to do a HAO jump. Now, HAO is where you leave an aircraft, high altitude, as high as it can go, you're on oxygen, you have like an electric suit on to keep you warm, and you open your parachute the moment you're stable and you're out of the aircraft. By that time, you've fallen about 2,000-3,000 feet. But you stabilize immediately, and you open your parachute. It's these high glider type square rigs, and then you drift. And then you can drift 50 miles. I mean, you can drift very far. That's a way of getting to a target on sea. It's not used often in special forces, but they can do it. And then there's, of course, your normal halo jump where you just fall. And you keep on falling. And you fall for 28,000 feet on oxygen. And then at some stage, you don't need your oxygen anymore because you can breathe normally now, but you will normally keep it on. And then you open your parachute and you are there. That's almost basic. It's been used in our wars as well. In fact, we're going to speak to Dr. I believe Mossi van der Merwe, the dentist of 7 Medical Battalion Group, as well as Tureki. And he's going to tell us in a future episode about such a jump, which I think he made operationally. But that didn't happen often. Most of the time, Special Forces were doing static line jumps. As you would know, if you listen to any one of them, SVF or the rest of them, they all talk about static line, even though SV and those people are qualified for free fall. So she wants to know this. And so Foxtrot is like, okay, I can teach you how to do it. I can train you. But he knows there's something wrong with this woman, even though he loves her very much and she loves him, but it's not really revealing it here. It's a little bit of a fight. I only do that many books later. But there's something very, very special about them. And if you want to know what, go and read or look at Codename Foxtrot. And then you'll also find out where the name Foxtrot comes from. All the books, as I said, can be read individually, but they do reflect to each other. In other words, it's possible that you read in a further book, they will talk about the Willow Bay method. And then unless you've read Willow Bay, you wouldn't really know what they're doing. You would have a basic understanding how they did it and how the approach method worked. But if you want the details, you actually have to go to a book, which is normal in life. I mean, if you do any operation, you would refer to another one as an example. It's just, that's why. I didn't write it like that for you to go and force you to buy that book. Really not. Guys, I don't care whether you buy the books or not. I wrote those books as as warnings, and I wrote it to get certain things out of my system. And I got, and therefore I'm very grateful for those books because I started writing them after my wife died. It was a very dark space in my life. I need to escape. And I started writing the books, and I wrote 44 of them in 44 months. In other words, I wrote a 400-page book every 3 weeks. Yeah, I don't think that will ever be repeated again, man. But that shows you, if you're heartbroken and you want to go to another place where you were happy and where things were going well with you, that's what you do. You just escape into your books. But they do this parachute jump. He gives her the training. There's one thing I don't reveal in Willow Bay, but I might in the future books. Special forces in South Africa at one stage decided they would train their own people in parachuting because, well, there were many, many reasons. And they quickly learned from the US, actually, from US Special Forces, that if you can do a tandem jump, in other words, where a guy is fastened into it looks like a civilian jump, and you do a free fall with a civilian, like civilians would do with a guy hanging on your chest, and that is much, much quicker and more effective to teach somebody to do Halo or Hayo, because he can immediately start, um, get himself balanced there while he's falling, because it's not that damn easy. You lift your little pinky and you start spinning like a circle. Then you lift this one and you spin the other way. And if you start, oh, yeah, it is a story. But once you can do it, it is fantastic. So they go out of the aircraft and he sees she immediately stabilizes herself. She's not waiting. She doesn't make any rookie mistakes. She doesn't make any mistakes. So he looks at her and he thinks, this woman is trained. There's something strange about Angelique. She has training which she shouldn't have, and she has friends in places which she shouldn't have. And she's running operations which is not totally in what I would say the South African government wants. Because the South African government, after Mr. Mandela came into being, is not a NATO country. That's the one lesson which goes through all the books. Stop thinking of him as the West, like you would and I would in our service years. Because at the end of the day, it's not like that. They are a BRICS nation. Your enemies are their friends, and their friends are your enemies. I can't put it clearer to you. Now things have changed. I mean, the Soviet Union is no more, and Russia is not your enemy. You know what I mean? China is now the biggest economy in the world, and it's going to win the next war against the US. My opinion, I have reasons why I say that. Read American Military Might Debunked, where I've taken passages from all the books together to warn. And you can look at my video on that as well. Point I'm trying to make to you here is the US and NATO ain't as great as they think they are. And they better wake up. But of course, they won't. But I don't care about that. Fact is, she stabilized immediately. And then he confronts her. He says to Angelique, well, he doesn't call her that. I mean, they call each other very formal. But he knows, and she knows that she betrayed herself. But anyway, I don't want to reveal the entire method to you, how they did it. Please read the book if you want to know, because it was then copied by Chinese intelligence. If you read my Israeli intelligence as well, I think they know about it. That means that the US will know about it too, because they will trade. Whatever they know, they will trade. But I haven't seen or heard them ever using the method, because they think it's too dangerous. And they think it's insane, and they don't have a finesse to do it. They're not good. Really not good. But anyway, this book then describes this method. And basically what they do is, well, I'm sorry. I was about to tell you what they do, but then I spoiled the book for you, mate. So let me rather not do that. Just remember what I said, that in time it's important, because they know where that ship is, or should be. And once they know, it's just a matter of getting aboard. And no, you cannot land on the deck of a ship and think you're going to survive. Your problem is you need to get out of a harness. That is a few seconds where you will definitely see your ass. And secondly, there's not really space for you to land that much. And the other problem is the ship's moving. It's better for you to fall in the water. And doing a jump like that into the water is described in this book as well. Now, there are different ways of doing it. Different militaries will do it differently. The way which we describe in the books, because that's simply the way the training went, is you actually cut loose. When you're about 100 feet above the water, you release yourself out of the harness. You just go into the old virgin position, legs together. Otherwise, the water will slam you in the unbenchables and your crown jewels will sit there right next to your eyeballs. And then you talk like this. And you are very red in the face for a few days because it hurts. So keep your damn feet together. It's important, even for a female. And just bend your head down like you would do with a static line and keep your arms crossed and just go down. And then you come up, you inflate your life jacket, you're away from your parachute, which will not then surround you and try and drown you. And then you better get your mates, because if you jump in the ocean, there's 8 to 10 foot waves. Man, it's a problem. But we describe that in many of the books. I think Codename Ghost as well, which I believe I did make a video about. So guys, this is a short one. I hope you enjoy this book. It is fascinating. It's fascinating how it was sorted out, how we got to the idea to do this. It became known as the Willow Bay method. Why Willow Bay? There's always a reason for that. My late wife was actually born in Willow Bay in the US, but the real operation, of course, had a different name. I just called it Willow Bay, and it became known as the Willow Bay method. Right, so that's it. The book's available at Amazon. It's in Kindle, it's in hardcover, softcover. It's about 390, 400 pages. So it's a substantial book. And it's also an audio, so you can listen it while you're driving. It's not in South Africa yet. For me to get the books in South Africa on print on demand, I have to buy 10 books first at cost price. No, it's not that expensive. You talk about what, 2,000 rands perhaps for 10 books, 2,500. But gentlemen, when you have 65 books, man, you're talking 150, 40,000 rands. And I'm sure I can ask Rebecca for that type of money, but I don't have it. And it's not worth it unless people buy them. And if they buy them, the money comes back to the channel, to Legacy Conversations. Then it's not worth my while to do it. As I said to you, my objectives when I wrote the books were very different. It was not about making money. If you want to make money, you make the Americans the heroes. You make sure there's lots of sexy people there and they do each other any way around. You make sure that one of the heroes are struggling because he might be a transvestite or something, or or perhaps he has got a mate who's gay, and you have to write according to Hollywood style. I urinate on Hollywood type of movies. I don't even watch them. I don't want to watch them. They sicken me, to be honest. This is just straightforward books. And they reveal a lot of things which people don't know. And they'll also, of course, not be on Apple. I've explained my views many times. I think Apple is a supporter of terrorism. Why? That terrorist attack in Bernardino in the US, California, 2015. You remember that time when the FBI, in the books known as the Clinton Whitewash Bureau, because that's all they are, they're also behind most of the terrorist attacks in the US. Yes, we know about that. It's discussed in the books. We also know who your first director was. Yeah, we know a lot about you. We don't rate you highly at all. But yeah, they did the right thing. They actually went to the court. They got a court order. They wanted Apple to crack this guy's iPhone, which is anyway a rubbish phone. And so they could do the investigation, It's standard in counterterrorism investigations. That's how you do it. You follow the leads. And of course, and I know I told the story in other videos, but there might be new people here. And of course, Apple said, well, we don't care. Yeah, you can take your court order. We're not going to help you. No. If I was there, I arrest Apple board of directors right there and they'll go to jail for contempt of court. I don't care who you bribe in your Congress critics or whatever. That's what would happen in a place like South Africa. But of course you don't. They just back down. No. Please, sir. It's pathetic. Pathetic to see that from the outside. You don't know how much respect we've lost for you when you're back down there. And so they went to the Israelis and they have a special unit, 808 or something, whatever they call themselves. And they broke the phone and they could do the investigation. Ever since that happened, I wrote out every iPhone in the GMJ books, in the first books. Angelique might still have an iPhone, simply because my late wife had one. But I can promise you, if she was alive and that happened, she would have got rid of herself her iPhone. And that's why you will never find the GMJ books or my own books ever on Apple format. I don't care. You either get it on Kindle or you get it in paper or audio. That's it. It's not available. I don't support terrorism. End of story. Neither should you. Okay, guys. Bye-bye. I've got to go. Monsoon going on here. Lots of things happening. God bless. Thank you for listening here. I'm leaving the links for you in the description and after I stop speaking here.